Yancy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to also share some thoughts related to research, education and training in the water sector. I did paraphrase it a bit, and I asked for permission to paraphrase since I do not want to take on the responsibility of representing the entire water sector. So I took the old KSA, WRC KSA named Water-Linked Ecosystems, and it would be based on the water-linked ecosystem perspective. In terms of the presentation, just the layout quickly, just provide some historical context. What is the current situation? Where are some of the problems that we are facing with gelling the research, the training and the education? Using the Pongola floodplain case study as an example, and then looking at why perhaps there is this problem that we have with gelling the society and decision makers and the researchers with one another. And then finally we'll end up with some points that we can consider. So I'm not going to take you back to the entire history of aquatic ecosystems and research and training in aquatic sciences in South Africa. Essentially, where I want to start is with the formation of the Hydrological Research Institute at Roodeplaat Dam in 1972. It was in response to the need for developing strategies, developing tools within the water sector, and specifically related to hydrology, the assurance of water, and such like. What was very quickly realized was that there was, in terms of undertaking the research, there was a skills shortage. And initially in the early 1980s, there was an import of skills notably from the UK and from Europe. The next phase, of course, was when skills were developed and research skills that were developed within the Hydrological Research Institute. The skills that were imported left, and people that were trained also started leaving. And it's actually with the development of the National Water Act that this new drive for linking skill requirements, capacity requirements together with the training of suitably qualified researchers at universities came about again. This morning it was alluded to, Yancy, so I did pick up on the FETWater, and so I'll go into a little bit more detail on FETWater again. With the development of the National Water Act, it became evident that there was a need for looking at what are the current institutions that provide training in the water sector, and specifically looking at integrated water resources management in South Africa. And a UNESCO, World Meteorological Organization, Department of Water Affairs and Forestry initiative came about to look at what the capacity to train students in these fields are in South Africa. And this study was completed in 1998 by Heather Mackay and Dana Grobler. And what they did was they evaluated the education and the training needs, and then also the capacity of the Department of Water Affairs linked with the needs of other role players as well. So other government departments, parastatals, NGOs, etc. At that time, the national imperatives were taken into account, so an emerging democracy, capacity building, affirmative action, all of those different components were also linked to the skills required. This led to the formation of the FETWater Initiative, and the FETWater Initiative is the framework for education and training within the water sector, which was initially funded by the Flemish government and administered by UNESCO. And the first phase started off in 2002, and phase 2 ended around about in 2010. And during this period, approximately 7 different thematic areas were funded. And one of those thematic areas was specifically to look at what are the training requirements to implement a key component of the National Water Act, and that is the resource-directed measures, and specifically speaking to the ecological reserve. And earlier this morning it was alluded to that to actually start developing curriculums and to get from the development phase to the presentation and the implementation phase is a tedious process. And with one of the first networks developed during FETWater, the RDM network, that started off in 2000, well, they started talking about it in 2002, but roughly 2004, thereabouts, actual work started off, consisting of a consortium of 9 universities as well as private consultants. And fortunately, the beginning of this year, in 2016, the RDM Tutored Masters program was officially launched. So due to a number of different reasons, it took quite a considerable time to get to a stage where we can now start training prospective students in these specific skills. And as you mentioned, we don't have the time to wait 15, 16 years given to start bringing a course online to train students. FETWater Phase III is currently underway. There are 6 new thematic areas, and the idea of FETWater Phase III is to achieve sustainability beyond next year, 2017. Alvin, I'm not quite sure whether we're going to get there, but hopefully we do get there by the end of 2017. And this morning in the presentation by the Department of Water and Sanitation, we saw what those different themes were. So it's water and infrastructure, water monitoring assessment, services and sanitation, governance, etc. So what we have is quite a long historical context within which a framework has been developed to identify skills needs and also to identify where the different capacities lie to train the people that require these skills. Now, parallel to this, in South Africa, a number of tools have been developed in response to the requirements set forward by the National Water Act, and particularly to look at how to achieve the information to develop the ecological reserve. And I've just listed a few of them. One of them, the drift methodology, which was developed by Dr. Jackie King when she was at UCT, is a proudly South African methodology which has been incorporated into the flow requirements analysis of a number of countries around the world. It's also been used for water court tribunals to set disputes in terms of water allocation. It's an alphabet soup, so there are a number of other of these methodologies that have been developed which are at the forefront of this type of assessment in the world. More recently, Drs. Christy Dickens and Gordon O'Brien developed a prob flow model, and the prob flow model is specifically designed to link the environmental water requirements to resource quality objectives that have been set. So it's once again linking the management component with a legislative component.